In this video, I will go through 5 common mistakes adapted from Gentaro's course and translated by a user online called Crabman. Most of the what will you discuss are taken from the article, which I'll link in the description below. I'll start off with some easier mistakes and then slowly move on to more difficult ones that even intermediate and advanced players make, so be sure to watch to the end. Mistake number 1, dealing with 3 pairs. It's common knowledge that when you have 3 pairs in your hand, you should break one of them. However, some players make the mistake of breaking the wrong pair. Let's use this hand as an example. Some players may focus on the Chun pawn and prematurely discard 2M to fix the 4M pair. This is a common mistake because you lose out on Ryaman Tenpai after drawing the 3M. The correct discard here should be the 6S in order to maintain the 3M acceptance. Remember, when you have 3 pairs, you should break your pair from the strongest block. In this case, it is the 667S block. Let's move on to another example. What will you discard? Here the obvious choices are between 3P and 4S. Which one is better? It is a common mistake to discard the 4S here. The correct discard here is 3P, and let me explain why. Different Ryaman weights have different grades of strength. Ryaman weights on 1 and 9 tiles are called grade A. Ryaman weights on 2 and 8 tiles are called grade B, and everything else falls under grade C. Grade A is the strongest, followed by grade B, and then grade C. This is because the 1 and 9 tiles are less useful to your opponents, and are thus more likely to be discarded, which results in them being easier to win on. Therefore, if you have 3 pairs, assuming no additional information, you want to fix the strongest grade of Ryaman in your hand, according to the ranking above. In this example, discarding 3P is correct in order to fix the grade A Ryaman. In summary, when you have 3 pairs, break the pair from your strongest block. Mistake number 2, moving towards tanki weights. A tanki weight is something like this, where you are waiting on only one tile. Tanki is the weakest basic weight. Since one of your winning tiles is already in your hand, there are only 3 outs. Generally, you want to avoid tanki weights as much as possible because it makes your hand very awkward once you reach Tenpai. With that in mind, let's say you have this hand. What will you discard? A common mistake by beginners is to discard 5S or 8S here, but this leads to a much higher chance of resulting in a tanki weight, since you currently have no pairs in your hand. The 5, 6, 7, 8S shape is a strong shape known as a ryankan. It has a potential to form 2 different Ryaman shapes, or a pair plus a sequence in the end. With this in mind, you should break the weakest block, which is the kanchan of 1, 2M. Even if all your other blocks complete before the sozu block, you still have a pretty good weight of 5-8S. This is called a nobetan weight, or a double-sided tanki weight, which is almost as good as a Ryaman weight. Let's take a look at another example. What will you discard? With this hand, it's quite clear that you want to call pawn on the Chun. However, similar to the previous example, once you do that, your hand has no pairs. The 2, 3, 4, 5S shape is a strong ryankan shape, and you should not discard 2S or 5S here, which is a common mistake. Once again, you want to get rid of your weakest block, which is the 8-9P block. In summary, try to avoid tanki weights, and don't break up your ryankan shapes like 2, 3, 4, 5 if you don't have any other pairs, because they result in good double-sided tanki weights in the future. Mistake number 3, not recognizing ryankan. This is probably the most common mistake I see beginners or intermediate players make. Let's take a look at this hand. What will you discard? If you notice that this is the same hand that I placed in the thumbnail of this video, well done. You know it's not 1S, but why? Let's take a closer look at the sozu block again. If you separate the 456S shape, you notice that there is a 135S kanchan shape as well. The isolated tile is not the 1S, but the 8S instead. Discarding the 1S actually loses you 2S acceptance for Tenpai. We call this 134556S shape a ryankan shape because it is a Ryaman and a kanchan shape mixed together. For identifying shapes like this, I personally look out for the kanchan first, by noticing tiles of 3 with a difference of 2 between them, like 357, 579, etc. After that, I see if the remaining tiles form any completed sequences. This takes a while to get used to, but let's put this knowledge to practice. What will you discard if you had this hand? At first glance, you may think that there's no difference between discarding the 1P pair and the 9M pair. However, upon closer inspection, we notice that there is a ryankan shape in the pinzu, with 1P being the isolated tile. Therefore, the correct discard is 1P. This allows us to accept the 2P into Tenpai, which we cannot do if we cut the 9M pair. One more example for this section. What will you discard? On the surface, it just looks like a choice of which of these Ryaman weights to discard. However, separating the 357M kanchan reveals that the 8M is the isolated tile, and therefore the correct discard here is the 8M. This also gives us the greatest tile acceptance because it gives 3 manzu tiles that can be accepted compared to only 2 tiles in the traditional Ryaman. For example, if the 2M were to be discarded instead of the 8M, only 2 types of tiles can be accepted on the manzu side. In summary, look out for hidden ryankan in your hand. Or if you prefer the brute force method of memorizing all possible combinations, here they are. Mistake number 4, fixing the pair. First of all, what is fixing the pair? Imagine you have a hand like this, which has two good Riemann shapes. On top of that, you have a shape that can be both a pair or a sequence in the future. In this case, it is a 7789M shape. If your hand is in Ishan-10 with two Riemann weights, modern Mahjong strategy recommends fixing the pair. In this case, it will be to fix the pair of 7M and discard the 8M and the 9M here. Even though it technically loses out on a few tiles of acceptance, it always gives you a good weight once you reach Tenpai. The idea of fixing the pair is quite well known today, but it is often wrongly applied. I'll now go over some common mistakes when it comes to fixing the pair. If you have an unko, which is a concealed triplet in your hand, you should not fix the pair. This is because you can always cut a tile from the unko to become a pair if you need to later on. In this case, you should cut the 7M because you have more tile acceptance. To understand why, let's compare the two scenarios. Scenario 1, discarding the 8M or the 9M. What tiles give you Tenpai? There will be 2 5M and 1 4S, so 4 types of tiles. Scenario 2, discarding the 7M. What tiles give you Tenpai? We still have the tile acceptance of 2 5M and 1 4S from before, since we can always cut the 9S from our unko to reach Riemann Tenpai. Additionally, we can also pair up the 3M, 4M, 2S, and 3S tiles for Tenpai. There are 8 types of tiles which guarantee a Riemann Tenpai, which is double the tile acceptance compared to just now. If you have a bad shape or a non-Riemann shape, you should not fix the pair. Here, the 2-4M shape is a bad kanchan shape, so you should discard the 7M. Once again, let's compare the two scenarios. Scenario 1, discarding the 8M or the 9M. What tiles give you Tenpai? There will be 3M and 1 4S, so 3 types of tiles. However, only the 3M gives you a Tenpai with a good shape. Scenario 2, discarding the 7M. What tiles give you Tenpai? Not only do we have the 3M and the 1 4S from before, we can also pair up the 2M, 4M, 2S, and 3S tiles for Tenpai. This gives us 7 types of tiles to Tenpai, with both 2M and 4M giving good Tenpai. That's significantly better. If you have a complex shape, you should not fix the pair. Here, you have a Sozu shape waiting on 1 4S, with the 3 4 5 5 6P shape being a complex shape. You should discard the 7M. This is because the Pinzu shape can be either a 3 4 5 5P shape if you discard the 6P, or a 3 4 5 6P shape if you discard the 5P. Either way, there are multiple Pinzu draws that can give you one sequence plus one pair, which will all fix the good Riemann weight of 1 4S. The same thing applies when you have a shape like this, where drawing 1P, 2P, 4P or 5P will still give you one sequence plus one pair on the Pinzu side. Drawing 1S or 4S is still okay because you can then discard either 1P or 5P for a double-sided Nobetan weight on either the 2-5P or the 1-4P. The correct discard is still the 7M. I've talked about when you should not fix the pair. Now let's talk about when you should. You should fix the pair when you're aiming for a related yaku. For example, this hand has a 789 Sanshoku chance. Therefore, you should fix the 3M pair and discard 2M and 4M first. In summary, these are the situations where you should and should not fix the pair in your hand. Mistake number 5, choosing shanpon versus kanchan. Imagine you have this hand where you have just got pawn on the chun and you must decide whether to discard the 5S or the 7S to reach Tenpai. If you fix the kanchan 6S weight, there are two ways to upgrade to a Riemann weight, drawing the 4S and drawing the 8S. However, when we compare this to a shanpon weight, as you can see here, you still have the 4S draw to upgrade to a Riemann weight, but note that you also have the 5M draw and the 7M draw. Remember that the 6S is not an upgrade because you discarded 7S earlier to reach this shape, so drawing the 6S will put you in fully 10. Therefore, in most cases, it is better to keep shanpon over kanchan. However, a common mistake arises when players don't recognize situations where the kanchan weight is better than the shanpon weight. For example, let's say you have this hand. Once again, the choice is between discarding the 3S and discarding the 5S. Here, keep in mind that the 9S pair does not allow any improvements to Riemann weights. Therefore, if you discard the 3S, the only tile that improves your weight is the 6S. However, if you discard the 5S here, both the 2S and the 6S will improve your weight. Additionally, drawing a 2S also gives you chanta if you win on the 1S, which results in higher expected value. Using another example, applying the same logic, I will personally cut the 5S here, since drawing the 2S gives me a chance for 1, 2, 3 Sanshoku. However, if I have a red 5S in my hand, then I'll cut the 3S instead, since I'm guaranteed to keep the red 5S in my hand no matter what upgrades I draw. This guarantees an upgrade in value. Remember that at the end of the day, it is still important to use your own judgment during games. For instance, if I don't need the extra value and I think the 9S is easy to win on, then I'll discard the 3S and wait on the shanpon instead. In summary, don't just blindly choose shanpon over kanchan weights without understanding your potential for improvement to a ryankan weight, and use your own judgment and the board state to help you decide which weight to go for. Furthermore, if your shanpon includes a red Dora, you should be more inclined to keep the shanpon weight to guarantee that all improvements can utilize the Dora. I hope this video helped you out. As always, if you want to see more of such videos, do leave a like and subscribe. It helps with the YouTube algorithm and ensures that this video gets recommended to more people. Thanks for watching and have a good day.